Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome to this year's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. Once again, as always, I'm your host, Tyler, joined here by my co-host from last year, Mark Brooks. Mark, how you doing this fine morning?
Doing great, boy. It's great to have football, isn't it?
I felt the same yesterday. It didn't feel real waking up that first Friday morning, but once you get to the school and you see everybody parked, everybody walking up to the field, you hear the band in the background and you hear the music playing over the PA system, the energy just feels a little different. Do you agree?
Yes, it just turned the day in from a mediocre day into a great day.
That's true. And it was great for Greene County, too, because I think every team except the Green Devils were home. I know you covered Chucky Doak at the Black Hole.
I did.
I covered South Green on Rebel Hill. And West Green and North Green were both playing on the range. So you had all county teams playing at home. And then
or in county.
Yes, in county. And then Greeneville was on the road, but not too far away in the Stone Castle in Bristol. So every team kind of playing within a short distance away. It was a good first week for most of the teams. I know we got a win from South Green, Chucky Doak, West Green, and Greeneville. North Green was the only one who took a loss. We'll go ahead and go through each team on each part of the show as we did last year. South Green with a win over Crockett, West Green with a win over North Green, Greeneville with a win over Tennessee High, and Chucky Doak with a win over Unaka. I had the South Green game, you had the Chucky Doak game, Tate was at West Green, so we don't have Tate here to talk about that game. You'll carry the Chucky Doak part, I'll carry the Greeneville, we'll both do Greeneville, but we do have a special guest that can cover the West Green game.
I think he can.
I think he can very well. We have a new head coach out on the range now, Coach Evan Monroe. He got his first career win last night. We've got him over here on the set. Evan, if you want to join us now, we'll go ahead and get him on the show and talk about the Buffs' win last night. Congrats on the first win last night.
Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, like we said, you always wake up that first Friday morning during football season. It always feels special. I know you played at West Green. You coached at the middle school the last few years also. Did you have those first game jitters as a head coach yesterday morning?
I don't think you couldn't have had them. As much pride as I take in that community, I always want to make that community proud. And so that first game, it's first time as a head football coach at a high school level, you're anxious. And, one of my assistants joked around with me yesterday, and Jay Early, if anybody knows Jay.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to mess with you a little bit. He said he carried around WD-40. He said, "Boy, you need to loosen up a little bit." And I spray you down. He said, "You're walking up all tight and making me nervous." And so, I was anxious, but once I got in it and settled in, things went well for us. And so, that first game, I was a little nervous. I got no lies to tell.
What about after the game? Did you sleep any last night?
Slept pretty good last night.
Did you really?
I slept like a rock.
All right, good.
I got the film on Huddle last night, watched it with Coach Hahn, and once we got it kind of watched and kind of went and got some points down to talk about, I went home and, my wife and kids were already out, and so I laid down, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was out. I didn't sleep well the night before, and so just the relax of knowing I got a win and just kind of got that first win. I feel good now. So
let's talk about the game a little bit, too. Things didn't start out as smoothly as you'd have wanted to. I think North Green forced you to commit 2 turnovers on your first 2 possessions. It was scoreless 0-0 after the first quarter. But then once the second quarter started, I think your team started to settle in a little bit more. You got that first touchdown on the board, and then the next play from scrimmage, you got another on the defensive end with a pick 6 from Max Garber. So what do you think was the issue in the first quarter? Do you think it was just a struggle of settling in? Do you think everybody was kind of tired also?
We come out, we try to throw the ball first thing. We threw it, it's partially my fault. We threw it right into the kid run a stop route, looked right into the sun, and Dawson sailed it a little bit over his head. But kid said as soon as he turned to look for the ball, all he saw was the sun in his face. And, that was just something that I didn't think about. And then we marched right down the field running the ball like I wanted to. We're inside the 5, and nobody even touched Doc, and he just bloop. And then I told him to take those arm sleeves off, and because as soon as they got wet, they just got slick, and that's what happened. You watch it on film; nobody's close to him, and it just falls right off of him. And so that was hard for us because we had went 7 minutes off the clock in that first quarter with that first drive. I think it would end up being a 13-play drive for 7 minutes to come away with nothing. That's tough. And then we come out and try to do a little play action pass, and really Dawson was trying to throw it to the kid behind Maddox, and Maddox kind of reached up and thought it was for him as just a high ball, and he tipped it, and it landed right in the kid from North Green's hands. And so, it's just little things like that kind of hurt us. But it may have been pregame nerves, it may have been first game nerves, it may have just been working some kinks out. But I feel like I told him, I said, boys, we're fine. We're fine. We've done what we've wanted to so far. Even after the turnovers, we forced a 3 and out, made them punt, and we marched down the field and score. It makes it a lot easier to breathe a little after that.
And I know you had a lot of success in the rushing game too. You had mentioned that the passing game was something that was difficult to handle, but 253 yards on the ground. Wyatt had 103 yards and a touchdown. Dawson had 60 yards on the ground, and then Ian Kiefer had 56 yards and a touchdown also. Seems like every time that you handed the ball off, you had positive yardage throughout the game.
We did. I don't know if we had very many negative plays at all. And that was kind of my goal going in. I tell the boys we got to limit explosive plays, and we have to create explosive plays and no negative plays. And so for us as offensive line unit, we take pride in making sure we're moving the ball down the field.
Right. If you had 253 yards, your offensive line had to be doing something right.
Oh, absolutely. I knew that was going to be one of our focuses this year, being able to lean on people a little bit and try to move some people and get that positive yards. And so being able to do that successfully that first game was pretty good because North Green, their defensive line, they're fast and they're physical. So to be able to take them and kind of take those plays down the field, it was a good night for us.
Those are your 3 leading rushers on the night too, but I understand that Austin Franklin also had a rushing touchdown, and then the other touchdown, of course, was Maddox's pick 6. Talk about those 2 touchdowns a little bit. Go with Austin's first, and then just lead into Maddox's and tell us how cool of a moment that was for him.
Franklin is a kid that we knew would be explosive when he touched the ball. He's a kid he's shifty. He's got some wheels when he wants to. And we know if we can get him, we had kind of pounded it that one direction to that wing side, and we come back kind of the counter off of that. And, once they had started flowing to that one side, and we come back the opposite way with it, Franklin kind of went untouched and, just outran everybody. And so
was it a true trick play, or is it just
no,
or just caught him off guard?
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I won't say lulled him to sleep, but we had pounded that one heavy strong side all night long.
Did you set it up for that one play?
Yeah, and that's kind of the plan. When you can lean on somebody and you run that same play over and over, they kind of get that tendency to start cheating that way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start cheating a little bit, that's when you come back the other way and gash them for
Usually
it.
hurts.
Yes. And so getting a 16-year-old kid to play discipline and stay at home on that backside when he's 4 or 5 plays in a row, seen it go away from him, he's itching for a tackle. And so when we see him coming, we run it the opposite direction, and Franklin did what Franklin does and took it to the end zone. And then talking about Maddox, that was his first high school touchdown.
That's awesome.
Really? Yeah.
And so he was pumped. His dad's one of our assistants, and him and his dad were both excited. I think Coach Garber was probably more excited than Maddox was. He was all fired up, and I was fired up too. I think I told Tate last night, I said I was so excited about I had a brain aneurysm on the sideline. I was so fired up. So I wouldn't have wanted to put a heart rate monitor on me at that point, or EMS probably would have had to be called.
The Garber kid, you had spoke to me earlier in the year, said that nobody worked harder than him.
Right.
So he worked for this.
Yes. And one thing that I've seen a big improvement in Maddox is his mentality. He's not just out there to have fun. He's out there to win now. And he knows it's his senior year and he's got to go make an impact. And so he's really focused in, and he's not just playing football to have fun. He's playing to win.
So he's an instant leader out there on the defense.
Yes. Yeah, we've got him at that outside linebacker spot, and he's really picked up film study. Doc is a guy on defense that studies film. We don't have to worry about it. But Maddox is kind of falling into that secondary role with Doc as that guy that studies film all the time, like studies it religiously. And so they tried to run that little screen that we had seen on film, and he's just sitting right there waiting at it. We preached all week, be aware of the screen, be aware of the screen.
So he's seen it coming the whole time.
Yes.
Did you see it coming?
Oh, I seen the screen coming. I didn't see Maddox till he had the ball in his hand. He was running the other direction, and I wasn't far behind him. I was fired up for him.
Was it next to your sideline?
No, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
It was the opposite corner, and so I was probably out to the numbers. I was so fired up. I may have been past the numbers. I don't even know. But I know for him to get that first high school touchdown was something special.
And that was a big moment for your team also because, like I mentioned, you had just scored your first offensive touchdown. I think that was the next play from scrimmage. So you get 2 touchdowns on 2 plays in a row from scrimmage. And Maddox has a knack for those big moments too. In the calendar year of 2023, we've seen him have a big game-changing play like that. And then baseball last year, if everybody remembers.
The doubleheader,
yes,
where
the
he had like
doubleheader.
8 hits or
Yes,
something. Yeah.
that was a big day too for him.
He's
so
having a big
he's got a
senior
knack for
season
the,
so far, yeah.
Yes.
The defense also carried you also with 2 turnovers. I know we had mentioned that North Green forced you to commit 2, but you came right after that and kind of traded off and forced them to commit 2. And your defense pitched a shutout. When your defense pitches a shutout, that's always a good night.
Oh, absolutely. We make a deal with the defense that if they pitch a shutout, we have a pizza party on Monday.
Is it still that way?
It's still
Okay.
pizza on Monday. So, so Monday, Coach
You
Greenley's-
get it on Saturday.
Hey, that ain't too bad a deal. Coach Greenley's got to fork it up, pizza party on Monday for him. So, but when we pride ourselves on our defense a little bit, and we say, hey, they can't beat us if they can't score.
Right.
Coach Greenley's an excellent defensive coordinator. He's done it for years. He was my defensive coordinator when I played. He's getting kind of old. But he's knows the defense like the back of his hand. He knows the checks and everything to any formation you throw at him. So having him on our coaching staff is a huge asset for me. Somebody I can rely on to be there with whatever an offense throws at us. So for us to have that pride and say, hey, we pitched a shutout, it's our first win. It's big.
Well, see, last year this same game was 50-something point game. So North Green has made a little bit of improvement themselves, even though they look at it as a loss. Did they do anything that really surprised you? Or not do something that surprised you?
The biggest thing that I think the biggest difference in North Green is their alignment and their assignment. They didn't have hardly any busted plays where they weren't lined up right, where we just were able to gash them because they weren't lined up right. They were very sound in their technique. Coach Tilson's doing a great job up there. I know that they're doing things the right way, and I look for this year to be a really successful year for them. So for them just getting lined up, knowing their job, knowing what to do on every single play is huge. And so we knew that they were going to ride the Vaught kid. We knew 3 was going to get the ball and be their workhorse, and that was kind of the focus, was keep contained on him, watch for the screens, watch for the quick outs, and we were about as prepared as we could be for that. So they didn't really do anything that we weren't expecting, but they executed what they wanted to. They tried to do what they wanted to do. We just did a good job of keeping it under control.
And speaking of North Green a little bit, also I want to give them some time in there. We've known that the North Green team has been young for the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen them have a little bit of growth in this first game. Only 153 yards on offense, but the defense comes up with 2 turnovers on West Green's first 2 possessions. A main chunk of their yardage on offense was, of course, Yeshua Vaught and Grayson Collins. Yeshua had 65 rushing yards. Grayson had 66 rushing yards and 29 through the air. You're going to look at both of those players to be their main workhorses through the season. But when they get into conference play, things are a little different for them this year. Right. It's not a 5-team conference anymore. It's a 6-team conference. So it's not win 1 and you're in.
Yeah, they got to have 2
They've got to win 2 now. I like North Green's chances this year, though. I think they're a much improved team with the teams that they have in their region now. One of their main ones that I know they have up on their schedule next is they travel to Jellicoe, a team that they beat last year to make it into the playoffs. So next week is a big week for the Huskies. That one will be a long road trip for them. They played there 2 years ago, had a pretty good showing, but had some, I would say, freshman mistakes that you would see out of a team. So look for the Huskies to have a big year this year.
Well,
and I
like
think
Evan said, they didn't do anything wrong.
Yes, that's a big improvement also.
You know, so Tilson's got them, you know, going in the right position. He's got them making the right execution. So they're making progress.
And you can see the culture kind of shift a little bit too. You're
Yes.
seeing more players on the sideline now. You're seeing more depth. You're seeing, like he said, not many busted plays. Everybody's kind of technically sound now. It's just like you admit, or like I had mentioned, it's just kind of a young team still. I think their oldest player on the line is they have 1 junior and 4 sophomores.
And,
So-
and when Eric came in, he knew this wasn't going to be a 1-year fix.
Yes.
He knew it was at least 4.
Yes.
And it looks like he's headed in the right direction.
And I'm excited to see how their season plays out too. They've got an important one next week. As I mentioned, they travel to Jellicoe. You go on the road also for week 2. You get that first win out of the way. You get it at home. That's always a special moment. Now you hit the buses and go on the road. You travel up the mountain to Cloudland. I think Coach Brand and I joked about Cloudland last year. There's something different about those boys in the mountains. They play very physical.
They do.
I don't know what they feed them.
I don't either.
If you figure it out, you need to bring it back this way.
You know, Cloudland's one of those teams that's always physical. They're always big up front, just corn-fed mountain boys, I guess.
And they're always in the top 10 of the state.
They are.
You know, if they're not in the top 5, they're knocking on the door.
Right. They're always a good football team. They play discipline. They play sound. They like to run the ball downhill. It might be a quick game because I don't know if either of us will throw the ball a whole lot.
That's true.
It might be a battle of who can play keep away the longest and get the last possession. But you know, it's one of those things. It's like, it's how are we going to respond to a long road trip? Because going up to Cloudland's not a quick trip.
No, it's not.
It's not. You're going up to the top of Roan Mountain, and if you kick a field goal on one side, you're kicking it into North Carolina. So you got to. It's one of those things. It's like, how do we respond to a long bus trip like that?
Speaking of field goal, did you find a kicker?
We did. Kendall Caldwell did a great job kicking for us last night. You know, he was 2 of 4 on PATs. He's just a sophomore. He was a little anxious. He had 1 blocked, which wasn't really his fault. But, you know, he was kicking it down to about the 20, 25 area. And for a sophomore that's really never played football before, it's not a bad deal. I got fired up. We kind of whiffed on a tackle, and he come to the sideline and met the kid and hit him and knocked the fool out of the kid. And I got fired up, and I was like, somebody check on him, make sure he ain't hurt, because he just waylaid that kid.
You always get excited when you see a kicker make a tackle.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't just like a normal ankle tackle like you see a lot of kickers do. He come and, he lowered the shoulder into the kid and
textbook.
Yes, lit him up. And so Coach Greenlee didn't see it, and he's like, boys, why is everybody cheering? I said, Kendall just laid that kid out. And he's like, that was Kendall? I said, yeah. He was like, oh, I see why everybody's cheering now. So, you know, the kid probably don't weigh 120 pounds.
Is he a soccer player?
Yes. He's a soccer player by trade. He's one of those, he's got a couple buddies on the team, buddies that were like, hey, man, we need a kicker. Will you come try it? And he was like, sure, I'll give it a whirl. And, you know, when he first got out there, he had never kicked a football before, and we had to kind of teach him how to do it. And once he figured it out, he was like, he's been consistent for us. So I think as the year goes, he'll get more comfortable in a game situation, and he'll get a little more consistent with it, and his leg will get stronger, and hopefully he'll be a good weapon for us for the next couple of years since he's just a sophomore.
Yeah, that's a positive there.
Yes.
Yeah, he can only get better.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, overall, I think you would consider it 100% a successful night. You get your first win of the season, your first win as a head coach. You do it at home, too, which is always a special moment. Go into week 2 now with Cloudland. Still haven't gone into regional play yet, but you're getting some good wins under your belt at the moment. One over North Green. Hopefully another one next week against Cloudland. I think that's all we've got for you today, Coach.
Appreciate
See you this
guys.
week. Thank you for coming through this morning.
No problem. Appreciate you guys.
Take some pizza with you also. Thank you to Kyle again for letting us come through here at Pizza Inn. Thank you, Evan, for coming on this morning. We'll be right back after the break. We've got a guest from Chucky Doak also that'll join us, so we'll see that right after the break here on Grassroots Media.
Pizza Inn offers contactless buffet to go with JoJo's Family Feast or anything on our menu for carryout. We also honor birthday parties and cater to businesses and large events. We make it easy. Call us today. Pizza Inn Greeneville.
At Corner Pond, the friendly and knowledgeable staff has the experience necessary to help you out regardless the need. Have an item of value you'd like to pawn or sell? Corner Pond can help. They pawn numerous items of value, including firearms, tools, ammunition, silver, coins, and much more. When you walk through their doors, you'll find well-stocked shelves full of electronics, gaming systems, fishing and hunting equipment, car audio and accessories. And don't forget about the room full of guitars and basses and amplifiers, or their outside lawn and garden equipment. Corner Pond is a case knife dealer and carries numerous used knives as well. Stop by and let the friendly staff at Corner Pond help you today at 432 East Bernard Avenue, Greeneville, Tennessee. Tommy's Plumbing has provided professional plumbing services to the residents of Greeneville, Tennessee for over 30 years. Our experience and reputation have helped us grow our business to add locations in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Tommy's Plumbing is local and family owned, and we offer a full line of plumbing services, such as kitchen faucet, shower faucets, commodes, and bathroom faucets, as well as drain cleaning. We also provide outside plumbing work, such as septic and sewer drain cleanouts, as well as repair and replace. Tommy's Plumbing pretty much does it all. Tommy's Plumbing is licensed, bonded, and insured. Our quality workmanship and passion to provide our clients with expert service is second to none. We guarantee we have the best warranty around. For all your plumbing needs, give Tommy's a call at 638-3662. Remember those days when life was simpler and every corner held a treasure just waiting to be discovered? Pettit's Market was a place where memories were made and where stories were woven. Here you'll find more than just goods. You'll find a piece of the past wrapped in the embrace of today. Pettit's Market is where neighbors become friends, friends become family, and good food and love holds everything together. So step inside, make memories, eat good, and leave happy. Pettit's Market, the little store with a big welcome.
Pizza, pancakes, or donuts. The Davy Crockett Travel Center in Baileyton has the cure for all your cravings. While you're there, shop our general store for souvenirs, gifts, and cellular accessories. In a hurry, grab a cold drink and a hot dog to go. Check us out on Facebook and come to...
Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show. Live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. Once again, I'm your host, Tyler. Joined here by my co-host, Mark Brooks, and joined by a special guest from the Chucky Doe Black Knights, quarterback Nicholas Palazzo. Nick, how are you doing this morning?
Doing all right. Morning.
So, got a win in your first game last night. Defeated Unaka by the score of 54-18. I understand that it was your first game as a starter also. So, I'll kind of lead in with the same question that I had with Coach Monroe from West Green in the first part. Did you kind of have those first game jitters at the beginning?
Oh, of course. Like I told Coach, if you didn't care, I mean, you had to have had the jitters. But after the first quarter-ish, they kind of wore off a little bit. But that first couple drives were kind of rough, just getting used to everything, all the new pressure. It was just something new.
And I'll kind of lead in with the same question that I asked Coach Monroe second too. First quarter, I think at one point I saw you were behind 14-12. So what did you all kind of do to settle in a little bit? What did Coach Kaler give you a speech on the sideline? Did things just kind of come naturally to you all? What kind of worked in your favor after getting behind?
We just ended up working together. Just cooled down, took some breath, and then everything started clicking. Brayson Mervin had some great runs, got us back in the game. Some amazing stops on defense, some amazing special teams runs, and that just got us back in the game, just got us cooled down.
Mark, I'm going to hand it off to you also because I understand that you were there at the Black Hole last night covering that game. So You're a little more familiar with it than I was, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to you.
Okay, you kind of stood back on the sidelines for the last couple of years behind Tulloch. You know, I mean, he was a great quarterback. He did a great job. How did it feel to come in there and just finally just get you? You know, look, I'm here. I'm to stay. You know, we're not losing anything at quarterback this year. How did that play into the game, and how does that make you play better?
It felt amazing. Just all 4 years of hard work, I can finally put into play. Just show everybody that I'm here.
Right, and you did have some nerves, like you said, and I think you got hit there in the first quarter and turned the ball loose. Did that play into it, or was that just a good solid hit?
It was a great hit.
It was just a good hit.
It
Had nothing to do with nerves. Maybe that might have calmed your nerves a little bit.
I think after that hit, I think it finally.
Yeah, because that was a pretty good sized boy. Now you're what 6'3", 200?
About that.
This kid was probably 6'5", 240, and he hit you pretty solid. And you know, you got straight up. And like Tyler mentioned, you did get down a little bit. You got down, 14-12. Did you get nervous? Did you get scared right then?
No, I knew we would just calm down. We'd come back. We'd find ourselves.
I know it started off without Brazen Mervin, trying to rest him a little bit. I think he kind of nicked up at the start of the season. And then, you enter Brazen Mervin, and, it just kind of his running opened everything up for you.
Well, I think Brazen Mervin's good now. He had an amazing night. Got us back in the game.
Yeah. And the coach told me, he said after the game, he said it was a combination of we got our feet under us, we got our nerves shaken off, and we got our playmaker back in the game. He said it was a combination of all three things. And I think y'all scored, 30 points in the fourth quarter, or the second quarter.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you hit a couple of long passes there for touchdowns. The first one there was a thing of beauty. I mean, you just led the guy just perfect in the end zone. Walk us through that play.
Well, start off with the line. The line was amazing last night. Leading Bryson through all those touchdowns, just keeping me in the pocket. It was amazing. Isaiah Treadway just broke open, wide open. It was a beautiful, beautiful route, beautiful everything, beautiful catch.
How does it feel to have a guy like that on the outside that you can throw to?
Feels amazing. And then,
yeah, that's a big help, isn't it?
And then Brock Rush too. Gosh.
Yeah, he caught a long touchdown pass.
Oh yeah.
Well, I noticed one other thing. You had rolled out. I think it was in the third quarter, early in the third quarter. You had rolled out to your left, and Brazen stayed in the backfield, and he really threw a block that didn't spring you, but it allowed you to get the pass off. Knowing you've got protection like that, can that make you stand in the pocket that much longer and wait that much more?
Oh, yes, it does.
So you have 100% dependency on him, and no problem.
No problem.
You feel very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Good. That's the way you ought to feel, because in order for a quarterback to be successful, he has to have a decent running back, and you got one that's a little bit better than decent.
Oh yeah. He's pretty good.
I mean, he's a pretty good size boy now. He's grown a little bit, and he's got a little speed. He can pound you up north and south. He can beat you east and west. He can stay in and block for you. He can catch a pass out of the backfield.
What can he not?
Are he has to be your best friend.
Yeah.
That was one thing I wanted to ask also. Does it feel more comfortable for you going into your first couple of games as a starter, knowing that you have an experienced receiving core and an experienced running back behind you to kind of complement you? Because we had mentioned Brock Rush, Isaiah Treadway on the outside, and then Brazen Mervin in the backfield, and you've got some returning linemen too. Does that feel a lot more comfortable for you knowing that you've got some experienced players around you?
Most definitely. I can do it without them. After those first drives, they cooled me down, and then we just started clicking. I'm grateful I have them.
I want to talk about Coach Kaler a little bit too. It's kind of a huge year for Chucky Doak football, because you come in and a lot of things were different, as I think a lot of people know. You've got a new head coach, you've got a new quarterback in there. So talk about Coach Kaler so far, and talk about his success at Chucky Doak so far in his short tenure.
Well, he's a great coach. He's a great guy. We've talked a lot off the field, not just about football, but just about life. I think his main goal is just to grow us as men rather than just football players. He's done an amazing job. I'm glad we have him. And I think he's going to do great work since we took it over.
Does he get after you a lot?
He does. But we need it.
Yeah, well,
You see that a lot.
that's kind of
between-
his job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see that a lot between a head coach and a quarterback, too.
Mhm.
They're kind of a combo. Because a lot of times that's your leader and your captain on offense.
And he's an old offensive lineman.
Okay.
You know, so he knows what the offensive lineman's supposed to do to help him, and he knows what he's supposed to do to help the offensive lineman. And a lot of players don't look at that. They don't look like as the quarterback helping the offensive lineman. But as a quarterback, you have to tell them where to line up. You have to tell them who's blitzing. You know, which way to lean. You know, do you have that trouble with your offensive line, or I'm not gonna call it trouble, but do you see that a lot?
Well, they get it mostly on their own. I mean, they're very experienced in what they do, and they can pick that up just as it goes.
Yeah. And you had a pretty good night. I think you were 8 of 15 for 119 yards, 3 touchdowns. You did have a pick early in the game. I looked up and the other guy had the ball in his hand, so I didn't see if it got tipped at the line, if the guy just absolutely stepped in front of it, you know, if you threw a duck. I didn't know what happened. What happened there?
It was just a misread. It was open at first, but then it just closed all of a sudden, and he tipped the ball up and he got it.
So it's just one of those. That's one of those things. But a lot of times, you know, you hear a quarterback say, "Well, if I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't have thrown it."
Well, I mean,
Again, you know, maybe you would have thrown it because it was an open play at the time.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, he was just in the right spot.
Yeah, things happen, right? Things happen.
Just have to let that go.
Now let's talk about Brock Rush a minute. He had the biggest play that didn't count that I think I've seen in football in 5 years. He had a 67-yard punt return, and he made a spin move at about the 40 or the other 40 that I have never seen before. He looked like a ballerina spinning around somebody, and then just left everybody standing there, and he just like walks the last 40 yards into the end zone.
He's an unreal player.
Did you see the spin move?
Oh, I saw the spin move. I was right there. Oh, man, it was unbelievable. He's an amazing player. I'm so happy he's on our team.
And he's not a very big guy, right?
No, I mean, but
he was electrifying last night.
Yeah.
Then he backed that up a few minutes later with an 80-yard kickoff return
Okay, I did see that.
in traffic. I mean, he was just zigzagging in and out, and I think every player on the team got a hand on him.
I think they might have.
Yeah.
I want to give Brock some credit too. He's a pretty big guy for his size, though.
Yeah, and
I hear he spends a lot of time in the weight room.
He's got some speed.
Yeah, he does.
He's got some speed, and he's got some moves.
One thing I want to ask you about also, Mark, is Chucky Dope's defense last night. We seen that they were down 14-12, and then after that,
well, on their defense really didn't play that bad. They got 18 points, but they were 0 for 3 on 2-point conversions. So that tells me that, you know, in close confines, they came together and said, "Nope, you're not doing this." One of them, they kind of got the gift touchdown when he got sacked and got hammered. So they got a gift touchdown. They did earn one. They did earn one. They marched down the field and just earned it. But I mean, the second half defense just said, "Nope, we're not doing this anymore."
Was it a second half shutout?
Yes.
It was.
Was it? That's always great to see too.
It was a second
Especially when
half
you make
shutout.
those halftime adjustments.
But the
and
second
come out.
quarter, man, that was just back and forth. You know, and but for Chucky Doke, they scored more points than they did. But it was just, I mean, it was back and forth. It was a pretty good quarter.
It was a great night for all Greene County defenses, I think, because as we mentioned in the first part, you had West Greene pitching a shutout, North Greene forcing 2 turnovers, Chucky Doke pitching a second half shutout, South Greene holding Crockett to only 18, and Greeneville holding Tennessee High to 7. So the most you saw any team score on a Greene County defense this week was 18, and I think a combined 43. That's
across
pretty
the board.
good.
Yeah,
Across the
it
board, that's
is
pretty dang good.
And you got to kind of figure out that West Green and North Green are playing each other.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if that helps your numbers a lot, or we'd have to figure that up.
Yeah, I don't know if you could divide that number by 4 or 5 because they're playing each other, but it is all 5 teams playing. But
Nick had a great night last night. Brazen Mervyn, I think he had 120-something yards on 9 carries and 3 touchdowns in the second quarter alone.
wow.
Like I said, Nick had 3 soft touchdown passes that were just dimes. Looked great. That's why he's here this morning, because he impressed me.
Yeah, I told Mark, I said, hey, pay attention. Pick somebody that you think would be worthy of coming through. And it seems as in your first game as a starter, you did just that. 3 touchdowns, carried your team to a win. Looking at Granger this upcoming week, I believe.
Is it at Granger or is it here?
It's here.
It's
Yeah.
It's here. Okay. Now they're not. That's still out of league game, right?
That will also be our game of the week next week. Also, so we will be
Game
streaming
of the
that on
week. There
YouTube.
you go. There you go, Nick.
Under the brighter lights now.
Under the brighter lights.
But talk about Granger a little bit. Last year, that was a big win for you guys because I think that was the game that made me realize that you guys were for real last year, because it had been a great start to the season. You had played well against Knox Catholic in the second quarter, which showed some bright spots. But when you walked up to Rutledge and you were able to carry out that big win against Granger, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes, including my own. So what do you think you guys are going to have to do to carry out that same success this year and get a win at home?
Well, very physical team, but we're definitely going to have to stop on defense and we're going to do our thing up front with the line. Just do our thing on offense like always. Yeah.
Mark, anything else you want?
Going into this game with Granger, okay, it's the game of the week. Now you didn't know that, so now you're hyped up. Are those nerves coming back?
They will, but they'll fade.
Okay. Everybody came out of the game healthy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody's hurt.
Nobody's hurt.
And did y'all have a meeting after the game with the coach last night?
No, we didn't. But
Not much.
Not much, but
because that was his first win, also.
It was.
That was his first win as a head coach, also, and his first win in Tennessee. Period. So y'all didn't shower him or Gatorade him or anything.
No.
You owe him one.
We had talked before the game on dumping Gatorade, but we never.
He's a pretty good sized boy, right?
Yeah, he probably chased us all down.
I've always wondered.
Confetti, do confetti.
But you got a lot of time to prepare from now until then. You got some film to watch. You got some practices to carry out also. It's good to get another game at home, too. You get 2 straight at home. After being, I think Coach Kirkendall and I joked about it last year, you all were the road warriors. I think there was one point you went on 4 straight road games, and I think you had 6 on the road. So it's a little different this year. I think it might be split 5 and 5 this year.
It flips this year.
Yeah. So, and with the regional schedules, too, kind of switched around. And with the conference change also, that's something else we need to talk about in the future also, is that conference changing around. But I think we're running out of time today. We got to go ahead and get another segment in. So, Nick, I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Congrats on the win yesterday also, and best of luck throughout the rest of the season. But that's all we've got for Chucky Doak's part. So we'll go ahead and jump into the break, and we'll come back for another segment right after this here on Grassroots Media.
Realty of Greeneville is celebrating 20 years as your hometown real estate firm. Times change, but our principles and dedication to our community have not. Thank you for 20 successful years, and we look forward to 20 more.
On behalf of our agents, we would like to thank you for helping make these past 20 years successful and look forward to working with you for many more.
Busted pipes got you down? Need a utility line trenched out? Whatever your light backhoe needs, groundhog trenching is the solution. Groundhog trenching does the digging so you don't have to. Whether you need to bore under the driveway, sidewalk, road, or maybe you just need help with your next livestock burial, groundhog trenching can do the job. Give us a call or even send us a text today to find out how the groundhog can help on your next project. Call 423-823-8308. That's 423-823-8308. At Corner Pond, the friendly and knowledgeable staff has the experience necessary to help you out regardless the need. Have an item of value you'd like to pawn or sell? Corner Pond can help. They pawn numerous items of value, including firearms, tools, ammunition, silver, coins, and much more. When you walk through their doors, you'll find well-stocked shelves full of electronics, gaming systems, fishing and hunting equipment, car audio and accessories. And don't forget about the room full of guitars and basses and amplifiers, or their outside lawn and garden equipment. Corner Pond is a case knife dealer and carries numerous used knives as well. Stop by and let the friendly staff at Corner Pond help you today at 432 East Bernard Avenue, Greeneville, Tennessee.
Pizza Inn offers contactless buffet to go with JoJo's Family Feast or anything on our menu for carryout. We also honor birthday parties and cater to businesses and large events. We make it easy. Call us today. Pizza Inn Greeneville.
Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. Once again, I'm your host Tyler, joined here by my co-host Mark Brooks. Once again, want to thank Kyle for letting us come through again this year. This is our second year doing the Saturday Morning Kickoff Show. We'll go into the, Saturday Morning Tip-Off Show, and I don't remember what we called it this spring. The Lead-Off Show, that's right. But hopefully this will be an all-year thing again. You'll be joining us every Saturday morning here at 10 a.m. Once again, the breakfast pizza, phenomenal as usual. We don't have our sling it through the garden pizza this morning.
No. I got here late.
Just our regular, meat lovers breakfast pizza. But usually we throw it through the garden. You throw it through the garden, actually.
I throw it through the garden, yeah.
You tell them put literally anything and everything on it.
Yeah, that's what a pizza is.
And they bring olives.
And they'll fix it any which way you want it.
Yeah, that's also a good thing.
And they got the buffet. They got everything on it.
Pasta, salad.
Yep.
I've always enjoyed Pizza Inn. I've always came here a lot since I was a kid. I always loved school field trips because sometimes you come to Pizza Inn after. That was always fun. But we got to go into the Greeneville Green Devils now. I cannot remember the last time that they've lost a regular season game. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
They carried out another win last night over Tennessee High, 28-7, inside of the Stone Castle.
And they got a new quarterback, too.
They also do. Yeah. Corbin Cannon stepping up into his first game. So you're seeing a lot of new quarterbacks.
Yes.
Seeing a lot of new head coaches. You always see a lot of new things at the start of every year. But when you get a new quarterback, that's always something special, too, because there's always that sense of kind of a change, not in the culture, but it's kind of a new leadership on the team.
Yeah,
you get a new captain on the offense,
and sometimes it's a change in offense because no two people are alike.
Yes.
So you have a kind of a change in the offense and their philosophy. They got even everybody thinks that the quarterback is just sling the ball, but his most important job is handing off the ball.
Yes.
And so running backs see a different handoff coming to them from what they did a year ago. So, there's an adjustment for the running backs when they had the new quarterback also. And, we seen it last night. Mervin come out and ran for 100 and something yards in the second quarter. So he didn't have a bad night. So he didn't have any trouble changing it. And looks like that the Green Devils run for over 100 yards last night. So they didn't have that trouble. So it looks like Cannon done a pretty decent job.
They had a good game all around. I don't know. You probably got stats on how many
got stats
total total offensive yards they had through the game.
333 yards to 174.
That's never bad.
Anytime you can double your opponent, you're doing good. Well, normally you just want to score more points than them. You know, you really don't, yards don't figure in on the scoreboard. But normally if you dominate on the field, you're going to win on the scoreboard, normally.
About 8 or 9 times out of 10, that's the case.
I've seen it not happen.
Yes. But Corbin was also a quarterback stepping into the starter role for the first time. He's waited patiently for his opportunity to stand in as a starter behind Brady Quillen for 3 years. He gets that opportunity in his senior season, comes out first game, 8 of 11, 205 yards and 3 touchdowns. It looks like he made the most of that opportunity too. 3 of their 4 touchdowns came from his hands. So great night overall for him. I think they scored all 28 in the first half, kind of cruised their way to a win in the second half. But Corbin, you're going to see him play well. You've heard a lot of good things about him at Greeneville.
Yes,
he can sling the rock.
He can sling it. And, you know, he's got a lot of playing time. Unlike Nick earlier, you know, Nick got some playing time, but, you know, Quillen got a lot of playing time in the second half last year in most games. Or Cannon.
Yeah.
He had a lot of playing time in the second half last year, so he knows the offense very well. And
he's learned under Quillen too, and Quillen, as great of a quarterback as we knew he was too, that's never a bad person to learn under.
Oh no. And speaking of Quillen, his little brother last night,
that's what I was going to lead
he caught 4 passes for 2 touchdowns.
Had 111 receiving yards, had a rushing touchdown also.
Yeah.
He had 3 of those 4 touchdowns also. So a great night from Carson Quillen also. It looks like we always get a Quillen in there during football season.
Yeah. And the play that steps out for me is last year he made his biggest impact on defense. Now, I didn't get to see the game last night, so I don't know how he did on defense or if he even played on defense, but he impressed me as much or more on defense last year than he did in offense. And he had a great offensive year.
Yeah. So we'll go into some more offensive leaders also. Emmanuel Dixon, he had 13 rushes for 57 yards. He's one of those running backs that you saw Greenville use a lot too. And then Samples, he had 89 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. So he had their other touchdown on the night. You're going to hear those names a lot throughout the year. Those are probably the names on offense that you're going to hear out of the Green Devils. And a great win for them, 28-7 over Tennessee High. And that
was at the Stone Castle.
That was.
Yeah,
always a special place to play.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I've never caught a game up there, and I want to.
Have you never been there before?
I've been there,
okay,
but I've never watched a game.
Oh, I've watched several of them there because when I was in high school in the 70s, we had to go up there and play.
I've always went to the Arby's Classic.
With leather helmets.
Yeah, I've always went to the Arby's Classic. So I always see it whenever you drive by when you come up the hill, and I've walked around it and such before, but I've never experienced a game there, and it was ironic. 3 nights ago, I was telling somebody, I was like, man, I want to watch a game at Stone Castle. But unfortunately, that wasn't my task this week to go cover Greenville at Stone Castle.
You go where you told, right?
Yep. And pretty tied up on most Friday nights with these games. But saw a good game myself also.
Oh, yeah.
South Green Rebels and the David Crockett Pioneers. To go ahead and close out Greenville also before we switch into that. They've got Dobbins Bennett up next on their schedule. Yeah. They go back to DB for the second year in a row. And if everybody remembers any game from Greenville's schedule last year, it's probably that game. Because what a classic that ended up being. One of the best finishes to any high school football game in the Northeast Tennessee region last year. Came down to one of the final plays at the goal line, I think on a 2-point conversion.
And it was Quillen that broke it up. That was the play I was talking about.
Greenville's defense stood tall. They play DB again next week, going back to Kingsport to play that game again.
And DB's going to be mad because they got beat in the waning seconds last night at Farragut.
Yes.
So they're not going to be happy campers.
And with the finish that they had in that game last year, they're going to be hungry.
So that's going to be
I think it's a fair argument to say that Dobbins Bennett is probably going to come out hungrier than Greenville will. But
again, like you said, Greenville hadn't lost a game since when was the last time you remembered it?
It's not the last 2 seasons.
No.
Yeah.
So Coach Spradlin's doing something right there.
He is. I don't know if he's ever lost a regular season game.
I don't think he has either.
If so, I don't remember because it's been a while.
We need to check in on that. Somebody knows that.
I've slept a lot since then.
Oh, I have too. He probably hasn't.
But I know they're 10-0 the last 2 regular seasons. Got another one last night. They go to DB next week. That'll be a heck of a game to watch too. I don't know which one of us will be privileged enough to cover that one, but if it is you again, enjoy that as much as you can, because if it's any indication of how good of a game it was last year, then you're going to be in for a treat.
You're exactly right. Whoever draws that one got the long straw.
They got the long straw. But going into South Green, man, what a showing they had last night.
Oh yeah, Crockett. Crockett's what, a 5A school, and they're a little 2A school.
I was speaking with somebody after the game. I don't know if many people expected South Green to win last night, looking at it on paper, seeing a 2A opponent, a 5A opponent. But I don't think anybody expected South Green to win by 17 points.
Well, you got a Sean Jones team that's usually pretty disciplined. So I don't think it was the task of big school, little school. Mm-hmm. I think he made it as football team versus football team. They're going to line up 11. We're going to line up 11. If our 11 beats their 11, we win regardless of size.
Yes.
And I think that's his mentality. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him today, but that's what I would think is in his mind, and that was his mindset.
And I think another thing also that I wrote about in the article is it's always different when a team is playing with a bigger purpose.
Yes.
As we knew, yes. Braxton Wilhoit passed away over summer. This was the first game since his passing. You walked up to Rebel Hill last night. There's number 11 jerseys everywhere, shirt jerseys. They had I don't know what you call it, that they run through at the beginning of the game that the cheerleaders hold up.
Yeah.
It said, "This one's for you." The student section had one right in front of it and said, "This season is for you." So the game and
that says a lot of, not only about the school, the coaches, but the kids. It tells you a lot about
community
them.
as a whole.
And the community
everybody
as a whole,
banded
yes.
together over that. And, I mean, you saw everybody have one of those shirt jerseys on. You couldn't turn your head without seeing number 11. And it was awesome to see. I know I saw Coach Hosey, Dr. Wilhoit wearing them. I saw some of the other coaches. I saw Coach Dyer wearing one also. The whole student section was almost completely white from having those on. I think the softball team was running concessions last night, and I think every single one of them had them on. So you saw everybody come together. The number 11 was everywhere, and you can tell from the opening whistle that South Green was fired up, and there was just a different level of intensity and energy there. I mean, it was just simple tackles for a 2-yard Crockett game, and they were jumping up, just screaming and flexing at the top of their lungs. It was just something different.
If you stop a team for 2 yards, that's a win.
Yes.
And that's hard for other people to understand that, but that's a win. 4 yards, that's not too good. 2 yards, you did your job.
And credit to everybody on South Green's team also, because from the opening whistle to the final whistle, they were in control.
And they learned a lot from this game.
They did.
Because, they played on emotion. But they learned, if I can play with emotion, I can play without it.
And they learned how to play together.
And they play together.
Yes.
They learned
you saw a few hot-head moments when you get upset with officials or you get upset with a certain play, but it was always corrected. Yeah. You've never seen any turmoil on the sideline. I saw it once, I think, and Coach Jones, if you know Coach Jones, he was right there to correct everything. That's the most interesting part about South Green is that was the first time I've been able to cover them on the sideline. Every time that I've covered them in the past over 2 years has been up in the crow's nest or up on top of the press box filming the games. So that was the first time that I actually got to go down on the sideline. Or I actually did it once last year too, but this year it was just different because you see the culture there. Nobody gets out of line. They're a very disciplined football team. And you saw it last night, like I mentioned, where you have a few hot-head moments, and he's right there to correct them.
That's football.
Yes.
That's football.
That is football.
And they're it sounds like, I didn't see the game, but it just sounds like they're just focused.
Yes.
They're just focused. They're ready, Because last year they came together toward the end of the year.
They had a very good run.
Yeah, they had a great run. And it sounds like it just carried off. That has carried over to this season.
And one thing, there's so much to talk about with that game also because it was so impressive to watch the way that they played. But like I mentioned, from the opening whistle to the final whistle, they were in control. Third play of the game, they forced their first turnover. I think it was a T.J. Buckner interception. They forced 5 turnovers.
Buckner had an interception.
Buckner had 2.
Had 2?
And he had 1 on the 3rd play of the game, which kind of shifted the momentum to South Green's way because, as I mentioned, as soon as they ran out in the 1st play of the game, they were fired up. And then you get that turnover the 3rd play of the game, and it was just downhill from there.
Oh, no, Buckner, he's the kid, 6'5", 6'6", with long arms. Where was he playing?
Corner.
On a corner?
He's corner or safety, I can't remember.
A 6'6" corner?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
He had 2 interceptions, almost had another where he tipped it and then dove towards the ground and wasn't able to pick it off, and had a long touchdown called back due to holding. He had a great game. Yes. Nash Rader had a great game. 3 touchdowns and a fumble recovery. And then the defense, man. 5 turnovers holding Crockett to 18 points. If you don't have those 5 turnovers, 2 of those interceptions being in the red zone.
Oh, really?
So if you count those, that's a minimum of 30 points right there.
Sound like end but don't break defense.
Yes.
And step up when you need to.
Yes. I mean, they
Sounds
were
like a Joe Case coach defense to me.
That was also another impressive thing is Coach Case had that defense in check. That's one thing between Coach Case and Coach Jones. They have their team and their players under control. And that's one thing that you saw last night. But throughout the game, the turnovers were what won them the game. I think it was 5-1. And I think the only turnover South Green had was I wouldn't say a prayer, but it was a heave into the end zone going into halftime.
No.
So it's essentially 5-0. TJ Buckner, 2 interceptions. Dion Blair and Connor Race each had an interception. Both of those were in the red zone.
Connor
Came
Race,
up huge.
That kid, he's got some quickness to him.
He does,
and he's got that dog in him.
He does.
That's what you can say. He's got that dog in him.
He's one of those, like we talked about Maddox Garber earlier. You usually have that one big play from him a game, whether it be an interception, a touchdown, or a long run. You're gonna see Connor Race's name come up at some point in a big capacity.
In a big spot.
You're gonna see him gain 2 yards on a carry. You're gonna see him get a short slant over the middle. But he's always bound for that one chunk play or one big defensive play every game. And then Nash, as we mentioned, had the fumble recovery. He had 3 touchdowns. And I think it's safe to say, even though the defense played well throughout the entire game, he was the MVP of the 4th quarter. He had the first touchdown of the game where he met a guy at the line of scrimmage and then just broke the tackle and then just ran into the end zone. And then his 2 touchdowns in the 4th were both from midfield or beyond.
Really?
Yes.
How many yards rushing did he wind up with?
I don't know the exact yardage, but I know one play was a 50-yard touchdown and then one play was a 67-yard touchdown. The 50-yard one was
put you over 100 right there. There's your
2
night.
plays. The 50-yard one was with about 5 minutes left to go, and that kind of silenced everybody. Because at that point, I think it was 28-12. And then Crockett scores again to make it 28-18. And they kick an onside. South Green recovers. Very next play, 67 yards all the way to the house. Wasted no time. Great juke move, too. That was one of the most impressive juke moves where he looks like he's going to go inside, and then he just shuffles his feet and goes back outside and just makes the defender miss and just outruns everybody into the end zone. One thing Coach Jones talked about with him last year that I don't know if I've ever heard anybody use this, but I'm sure everybody has, is the thing that sets him apart is just the way he moves his hips. And if you watch him closely, you can tell, too, where he's so shifty. He's quick on his feet, but the way he moves his hips and glides in between the tackles and around defenders, I think sets him apart at the running back position.
Maybe he's doing that Dak Prescott workout.
Before every game?
Yeah.
But he's only a sophomore, too. One player that I want to talk about, Jacob Suson.
Yeah.
2 passing touchdowns, 1 to Dion Blair, Dion Blair, another big game from him, an interception and a touchdown.
He's another one of those guys.
Yes.
He's always making an impact.
There were so many big players from South Green last night. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't put it on
30,
one
if you
player.
have 35 points, you're going to have some impact plays.
And 5 turnovers.
Yeah,
a lot of
35 points, 5 turnovers equals impact plays.
Yep.
At least 8,
You
9.
had 4 players right there that did great on both sides of the ball between Buckner, Blair, Rader, and Suson. And then Trey Gudger also had a receiving touchdown. But Jacob Suson, I mean, what a game from him. 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception that, like we mentioned, was just a prayer at the half. I don't think he had any other close calls also. And you could tell the huge difference that he's made from the first game last year against Boone to the first game this year against Crockett. His growth is exceptional to where he is leading the team now as the captain in his second year to where it looks like he's a seasoned senior.
Well, you could see that last year as a freshman.
Yes.
You could see that because he had flashes and he had points in the game where he would carry the game 3 or 4 minutes, and under Coach Jones' tutelage now he's carrying the game a little bit more and becoming a leader on the field.
And there's something different about South Green too from how they were last year, because last year you had the quarterback battle between Raider and Susan.
Yeah.
You saw that evident in the Boone game.
I don't know if it was a battle or if it was just trying to see which one.
It was trying to find which one.
Trying to find out which one worked the best out in game situations.
And then they found Raider was suited better at running back, and they found Susong was suited better at quarterback. So I think once they found that is when you started to see them go on that run last year, where they rattled off, I think, 3 wins at the end of the year. I know it was Johnson County, Seymour, and I can't remember the other. And then they go into the playoffs and they get a win over Rockwood.
Yeah.
And they finish their season. I can't remember the exact record, but they've carried that over into this season. Huge win over Crockett. I don't know the history of South Green football very well, but I think you can go ahead and say that's one of the bigger upsets they've had on paper.
Probably.
A 2A win or a 2A team with a win over a 5A team.
Yeah,
yes.
It's probably be overshadowed by some of their bigger wins.
Conference, county-wise,
but that one, a 2A over a 5A. Yes, I'd say.
This one doesn't hold as much weight considering there's no conference implications. There's no county rivalry. But the fact that you went in and beat a bigger school that probably came in thinking they were going to roll over you, and you came in and rolled over them by 17 points and never really backed down. That's one thing I wrote about.
Said, Crockett ran into a buzzsaw.
They did. And it was like I mentioned in the article at the very end, the defense, it was kind of one of those storybook ending things where the defense never backed down or never gave up all the way to the end, because usually at the end of a game, a team's going down to try to score, and they're going quick play after quick play after quick play, and they score. And you're like, okay, it's not a 17-point game anymore. It's a 10 or 11-point game with 10 seconds left.
Yeah.
They get one on the board. South Green, with 7 seconds left, forced a turnover on downs on 4th down. So all the way up until South Green's final play on defense, they were still forcing turnovers or turnover on downs. And I think they forced 2 turnover on downs too.
That's as good as a turnover most of the time.
And we've talked about it also. South Green's defense, maybe the best in the county. We had talked about it last year how they were.
It sounded like when you say they had 5 turnovers, it's.
Because you look at their county games last year, they held West Green to 16, held North Green to I think 6 or 7, held Chucky Doak to 14 at the half before it got away in the second half, and they held teams like Seymour, a 4A opponent, to only 2 touchdowns. South Green's defense is one you've always got to watch out for and scout against, but Coach Case always has his defense ready too. That was evident last night. Credit to him, Coach Jones, everybody out there at South Green. That was one of the more enjoyable games that I've got to cover just because of the energy, the intensity, the atmosphere, and just the overall win at the end. But oddly enough, week 2, they go into their bye week.
I know, that's all.
That is odd.
I thought that was odd too.
I've never seen that. Coach Jones said he had never scheduled that before, but they get a bye week in week 2. They come back to host Cumberland Gap.
Well, that might help them a little bit.
It could.
Because they can go scout other teams early in the year and catch their weakness. Because you show your weaknesses early in the year.
You do.
So that's going to help him a little bit if he goes and scouts one of the teams he's going to play, or probably send out and scout 2 or 3 or 4 teams that they're going to play and find their weaknesses.
And you get a region opponent next too in Cumberland Gap.
Cumberland Gap. Yeah.
They'll be playing that one on August 31st.
Now they're playing down this year too, right?
They are staying.
Are they?
West Green's moving down into the 2A conference with them.
Okay.
So that's another one.
Was Cumberland Gap not 3A last year?
They were 2A.
Were they 2A?
Yeah. But that's another weird conference too, where I think every single conference is getting kind of shaken up a little bit.
Well, they had these little small conferences, and some teams weren't even winning a game and making the playoffs.
That's the way the conference was last year. It was a 4-team conference. You're in,
You're
regardless.
in, yeah.
You're just playing for a home berth or a regional championship.
Yeah.
Now this one's gone from 4 to 6 teams.
Yeah.
You got West Green moving down, and you've got the addition of Eagleton, which is kind of a relatively unknown school
Right.
and program. So you don't know what to expect there.
Now,
They're
where is
familiar.
Eagleton from?
It's between Alcoa and Maryville, from what I've been told. So
So it's,
at the moment, you
it's a
don't
Blount County
know
team.
what to expect, but in a few
so they're
years,
going to
that
get
could
Maryville and Alcoa guys.
That's what's interesting. In a few years, you could see a lot of talent go to Eagleton. So
Yeah.
that's
You
going
might
to
see
be
it this year.
That's going to be intriguing to watch. Like I mentioned, I didn't see their score last night, so relatively unknown to how they are as a team at the moment. But South Green gets that bye week, goes into their first regional game against Cumberland Gap in week 3. That, I think, is Labor Day weekend, so they're playing that on a Thursday.
Oh, that's good.
That'll be the one where you see some teams playing on Thursday instead of Friday when they're out of school. They're hosting that game. They're hosting 2 weeks in a row to start the season after going 2 weeks on the road last year. A little bit of an easier schedule this year. They played Boone and Catholic to open up the season the last 2 years. So you're getting Crockett and Cumberland Gap now, beating that big opponent that you're starting the year with. That was something I asked Coach Jones about in our preview interview this week is, are you playing Crockett to kind of get that experience with a bigger school? But, man, I don't think you expected them to come out with a 17-point win.
Well, one reason you play those schools is to get better.
Mhm.
But maybe they proved that they're already there. And they're getting even better.
South Green at the moment after week 1 is the most intriguing team to me.
Probably
seeing how they
their,
play.
their win was probably the most impressive.
It was
in the
definitely the
county.
most
Of
impressive
course,
to
you know,
me.
West Grange was impressive. Chucky Dokes, 54 points was impressive. Greenville was impressive. But I'd say if I had to put my thumb on it, I would say South Green's victory was more impressive.
And I talked about it, I don't think we've mentioned on air before because this is the first time we've been on since spring, but I'd said that Chucky Doke and West Green were probably the two most interesting, considering you have 2 coaching changes and a lot of roster turnover with a lot of graduations of your best players on each side of the ball.
Right.
But I think now the most intriguing team would be South Green just because of the way they played in week 1 and their big marquee win. And I had a fan come up to me last night. He called the win monumental.
Really?
And I mean, it was big in that area, in the southern part of the county. It was a huge win, huge for their community too. But I think that wraps it up. It was a great week 1.
Yep.
You
Sounds
had
like it.
4.
I mean, it was. We're looking forward to week 2.
We are. You had a win from every team in the county except North Green. Unfortunately, they had to play a county team. So you knew that one county team was going to have to lose. But 4 of the 5 within Greene County won. You've got Greenville with a win over Tennessee High, traveling to Dobbins Bennett next week. South Green with a win over Crockett, hosting Cumberland Gap in week 3 after getting a bye week in week 2. Chucky Doke defeating Unaka, hosting Granger next week. North Green losing to West Green, traveling to Jellicoe, and then West Green beating North Green, traveling to Cloudland. So that wraps up week 1 of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show here on Grassroots Media. Once again, I'm your host, Tyler, joined here by my co-host, Mark Brooks. Mark, back week 2?
Back to week 2.
All right. Look forward to joining you again. Thank you all for watching this week's edition here on YouTube. We've changed platforms too.